pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The Arizona Cardinals have traded the third pick to the Houston Texans. With the third pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Will Anderson Jr., linebacker, Alabama.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
With the 8th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Bijan Robinson, running back, Texas.
The Falcons did it.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
With the 21st pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Quentin Johnston, wide receiver, TCU.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
With the 26th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle, Michigan.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, here we are in studio to close out this week, and will be the last show we have in April. May 1st coming up on Monday. We will discuss and digest the NFL Draft. Pac-10's new commissioner had a press conference today. A couple of nuggets on our discussion yesterday about Apple Plus and ESPN. In fact, Jim Williams will join us. He had written something very similar, but he thought maybe it might be Fox. But we'll have Jim on. He's going to join us at 4:30 today. We'll have a couple of different guests. One is Kyle Yeomans with DallasCowboys.com and the radio network, who will discuss the Cowboys had a couple of offers to have trades last night. They ended up doing the pick with Mozzie Smith from Michigan, the defensive tackle. We'll also discuss that. And also Jon Cooper revisits with us on the hits and misses he thinks from last night, the availabilities for tonight. All right, so here we go. This is an interesting nugget from Brett McMurphy. All 31 NFL draft picks, the first picks, are from Power 5 conferences. It's the Big Ten led the way, along with the SEC, both with 9. The Big 12 had a very nice first round with 6, ACC and Pac-12. So everybody had a chunk in the opening round. And so there's a note that there was no, like, I hate that term, group of 5, whatever it might be called. But there you go with that. But here's the note on that. First time in 58 years, every single first-round pick was from one of the current Power 5 conferences that we just listed. The last time that happened was in 1965, when the first round consisted of only 14 picks. So everything was Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC, and also the Pac-12.
Yeah, I don't think there was a guy from one of those schools that would have really made it into the first round. The highest rated guy from a non-group of 5 school is actually Cody Mauk from North Dakota State. So and he'll get picked in the second round today. But yeah, I'll tell you, it was a great night for the Big 12. Having the best of their best, really seen well with Bijan going and Tyree Wilson and Quentin Johnston and Will McDonald going at 15, which is a bit of a surprise. But if you watch Will McDonald play, that it's probably not that much of a surprise. Going to a place that really fits him. And I'm leaving somebody
Kansas State defensive end.
Yeah, Felix Anaduke Uzoma went right at the end of the first round to the Chiefs, and Anton Harrison got into the first round going to the Jaguars to protect Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, it was a good night. 6 picks is a big deal. 2 of them from schools that are leaving, but they'd still have 4. That'd still be more than the Pac-12. And there'd, still be some some movement. I mean, there still is some movement, in the future. But right now, those are Big 12 schools. So that's a Big 12 record for the 10-team era. I don't know if y'all realize that, but I tried to dig back into the last time they had as many as 6, and it was back in 2011. And that's when Nebraska and Colorado and Missouri and Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri, and A&M were all still part of the conference. And of their, I think they might have had 8 picks back then. I think 6 or 7 of them were from those schools. And the other, maybe 1 or 2, was from Baylor. And that was it. Back in 2011. It was all Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri, the schools that were leaving, and then a sprinkling of Baylor. And that was the highest up until last night. So it had been quite a while, a decade, since they had approached, having that good of a number in the first round. So, yeah, I think that bodes well. And I mentioned the Texas and Oklahoma part because it wasn't like it was 6 guys and 5 of them were from those 2 schools. And you're like, yeah, go Big 12. No, it was just 4 of the 6, and Bijan and Anton Harrison played their whole careers in the conference, so that counts, obviously. And, that's something to monitor is when those 2 schools leave is how much of a dip is there? How much can the 4 incoming replace that? That's something that you want to try to, stay on pace as best as you can. But, for right now, it's a fun thing to celebrate and enjoy. And there's another draft that'll be coming up next year, too. Let's not forget. By that time, those 2 will be celebrating their new destination, but that will still be, a last go-round of this incarnation of the Big 12. So maybe they can match or beat it. I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead, but last night was a good night overall for the conference.
All right, a couple other notes in college football. Again, those were from Brett McMurphy. This is from today's Big Ten press conference. New Commissioner Tony Petitti from Adam Rittenberg. There's 3 or 4 of these tweets. Says his immediate attention is on integrating USC and UCLA, and as for future expansion, as commissioner of the Big Ten, my job is to make sure it is as strong in the present and future as it's always been. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and the CEO, one of the other guys, hold on, we got this tweet somewhere, did say that, as of right now, let's see. The Illinois Chancellor Robert Jones. No,
I've got another. We're going to get to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now it's not. They've got to focus on making sure USC and UCLA and all that's right. I think that and I've maintained this. The Pac-12 is going to get a TV deal, a media deal. It's probably not going to be all that great. And then in 5 years, we can have this discussion in earnest again. I mean, something like that. I think that's what we'll talk about expansion really more is about 5 years from now when the media deals start to expire, the first round of the college football playoff is, kind of expansion has gone through and people see what they want to do. Then I think we can probably have a more reasonable discussion about it. But, there are things that remain to be seen.
Well, I mean, when it comes to expansion, there's not always a lot of reason for a lot of people that, really can kind of take advantage of the vagueness of some comments like this one. But there's a follow-up comment that provides some clarity. And I wish, if anything, because I love, talking about the rumors and all that as well. But I do think that if college leaders are so worried about it, or they don't like the negativity that stems from it, or don't like people rattling the branches if there's nothing really there and whatnot, just come out and say the truth. Don't be so vague. How vague was that statement?
Yeah.
Because I know they can't rule anything out, because guess what? Nothing's off the table. Mm-hmm. As much as people, no, there's nothing absolutely blah, blah, blah. Then just say that. But they don't, right? Why don't they say that? Because they don't want to eliminate that chance, because there's a chance. Now,
and even saying, I'll leave it at that, opens that door.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay, what does that mean? I'll leave it at that after this incredibly vague thing that I just said that's open to interpretation and can be taken a million different ways. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't want people speculating about it, then, I don't know, hit the bullet point a little harder or hit the bullseye a little better. But they don't, and they're not stupid people, so some of that's intentional. And I know some of that, too, is they're not always the smartest people in the room either, and they don't know what's coming down the tracks. And so they've got to be somewhat open to any, direction to possibly pivot. So that's the weird thing about expansion, is just that you can't be as firm sometimes as you want to be. And it's like with the Pac-12 is these officials come out and they're like, we are not interested. A sentence later, as long as we get the TV deal, it's
right.
It's one of those things. So it's never 100% really until it is. And so, yeah, that's a comment that is absolutely one that could let people run rampant. But there's a follow-up from someone else involved in that conference that's a little bit, less vague as far as what they're looking at.
All right, which one you want to go to? You want to go to Illinois?
Yeah.
All right, you have the one from the president at Illinois. This is from Nicole Auerbach. Illinois Chancellor Robert Jones telling The Athletic, the notion of expansion is not really at the top of our list at the moment. That's an honest answer. We're only going to do what's best for our current membership. There has to be some value added for expanding beyond. And that means that whoever they add, whether we hear the various teams or programs, will have to equal at least what they're making per school that's a part of the Big Ten, including USC and UCLA. And that's a big number to reach.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's got to make sense. And the Big Ten has to, look, Oregon and Washington, everybody can go wherever they want to go, but they have to be wanted and it has to work out. So I don't know if we're, really, seriously talking about it right now at all, because the Big Ten has kind of said, like, right now at this moment, we don't want to do that. We're focused on what we are. Now, again, things can change in a heartbeat if Oregon and Washington called and said, look, we hate this TV deal. We want out. What's our deal? But even then, if that's a worse deal for them than in the short term than staying, who knows?
Big Ten don't have to answer that phone call, though, Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're not at the behest of the two schools you just mentioned. Like, I mean, as much of that might be in people's minds, they don't control anything. They can be the unhappiest people in the world. That's their problem. That's not Michigan's or Ohio State's or anybody else's. If they're wanted, they'll let it be known they're wanted, and they'll pursue them. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're not just going to add teams for the sake of doing it, as much as we like to fantasy book this and, like, here's 6 teams it's a little bit more complicated than that. So, yeah, I don't feel, and I haven't felt for quite a while, and I think we've been pretty clear in this, that we haven't really entertained the idea of the Oregon-Washington Big Ten move, because it just doesn't – there's not really any part of it that seems all that realistic. I mean, there's not really a lot of smoke to believe outside of just the – well, they would like to do that.
Only maybe when the Pac-12, there was a little bleeding early, there might have been that, but no.
But we don't hear from them, though.
No.
We don't hear from those two. No. We hear from everybody else, but we don't hear from those two. I mean,
Which is because of what our discussion was yesterday, that they're trying to wheel behind the scenes to make something happen for them, and that's why they might both be going, damn.
Well, I mean, that's the thought, yeah. I mean, the thought is that they want to go. The thought is they would like to go, but the other part of that is that they don't have an invitation. I mean, it's really that
you can't go somewhere that you don't want.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can talk all day long about how much they'd love to do that, but if they don't have an invite, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, I mean, that's a situation where the Big Ten, I'm sure, will, bide its time and be calculated and smart, just like they were with the 2 LA schools. And who knows, they could be looking in any direction as far as what they do next. But, yeah, that doesn't make it feel like there's anything like impending, around the corner, unless they're just hiding it really well. And I don't know how you take that if you're those two schools, but I think if you're the Pac, that makes you've probably already felt like they're not really going anywhere anyways. But maybe those comments make you settle down even a little bit more. But I'd be interested to know what those two thought.
I think that maybe the commissioner transition may have also slowed any idea the Big Ten was going to expand anymore after USC and UCLA. Now, let's go to the one with Chris Vanini. Chris Vanini had this. New Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti said he likes or thinks a 12-team playoff is perfect number to keep the regular season important, connected with the postseason. I can't emphasize enough how big conference championship games are going to be now because of the buys. So he's saying that even more value on the conference championship games. Also, wanted to note, this is from Dennis Dodd, which kind of ties back into the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and anyone who's trying to make more money. Perhaps the most interesting comment today, according to Dennis Dodd and the commissioner, Tony Petitti, the content of the games is what matters. The platform is secondary.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But if the content is really good, then your platform, like, the chicken and the egg theory here, the content is good, the platforms are going to be better because more platforms are going to come and get you. And that's that just means that you have to have good teams in your conference and in playing well, because if you have a bad conference, then you're going to get less and less opportunities. But yeah, I mean, the platform is certainly secondary, says the guy who's on every platform, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's speaking from the peak of the mountaintop, but I do agree that if something's good, people will seek it out. If music's good, it doesn't have to be on the biggest music label to be found. You can find it on a SoundCloud page, and that's the way the world's worked for, I don't know, the last couple decades of the internet. I mean, that makes everything, pretty much, front and center if you want it to be. It doesn't have to, be a slave to the cable network, and what you got is what you have to eat, and that's it. And no, you can jump on, and I can pull up anything I pretty much want to watch right now on this laptop in front of me. So yeah, I mean, I think as far as, clearly I think that can be taken by Pac-12 fans who are possibly looking at a streaming deal as a great comment of like, yeah, it doesn't matter where we are, as long as the product's good, then people will watch it. I think that this year with the crop of quarterbacks they have, that could certainly be the case. But as far as that new deal goes, I mean, that's a positive way to look at it. I don't know if that's all the way true, because I do think brands matter a lot in college athletics, and the brands are as much of a pull as the product. Because there's some big brands that the product's really not that good, but guess what? They still pull eyeballs. So I kind of agree, kind of disagree with him, but as far as the platforms go, yeah, if something's good, people will seek it out and they will find it no matter how, no matter where.
All right, we're going to get into more of what we discussed yesterday with Apple Plus and the possibility of that late night Saturday with ESPN. Jim Williams joins us at 4:30 to break that down a little bit more, but 2 or 3 personnel notes on rosters or transfers. Nebraska and former Texas quarterback Casey Thompson. Max Olson entered the portal as a grad transfer. He could go anywhere and play immediately. As soon as Nebraska brought in Sims from Georgia Tech, to me, the writing was on the wall. And Rule talks about Sims all the time. And Thompson missed spring because he had coming back from an injury. I think he can still play at a high level. He does have issues with throwing too many interceptions, but he has put up a lot of numbers when he's played at Texas and also even with an average at best Nebraska team.
Okay, if you're Auburn or Florida, would you rather have Casey Thompson or the guys you have, which would be, I'm just going to say, Robbie Ashford versus Graham Mertz?
I mean, I don't know how much he really changes things.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I mean, if he was like significantly better than those guys, and that'd be one thing. But it's like you're just adding like another lemon to your parking lot, or I don't know. There's people can come up with better comparisons, but I just feel like you're crowding the garage with another lemon versus. You need a Ferrari, you need a Tahoe. You need something that's a 2023 and is rip roaring ready to go. And right now you've got some other cars that you're not so sure about. So I feel like you just be adding to that issue, unless you disagree and think he's significantly better than those guys.
No. I'm just saying I think he could play. There's got to be one of the 60 whatever teams we discussed where could use a quarterback like Casey Thompson.
No, yeah, I'm saying more to Paul's point of those schools. I just don't know how different he is from the guys you have. But yeah, certainly there's plenty of places he could go. I just don't know. If he's going to have the opportunities any longer that he's had. He's had some nice opportunities the last few years, and he's had moments where he's taken advantage of them, and then other moments where he hadn't been able to hang on. So he needs to keep that in mind the next place he goes.
It was interesting how much dynamic he got when Trey Palmer started to get some passes thrown his way, who I wish he would have stayed in Lincoln, but he's not. 2 basketball notes, one for Texas and another for Texas. This is Ron Holland, the number 2 all-overall basketball player in the country, who has been a long-time commitment to the University of Texas. There's his, Instagram post about he's decided to decommit from UT, reopen his commitment. Texas will still be one of my top schools. I asked Paxton, who's pretty much, he keeps up with some things. He said that there's a chance maybe he goes to that other NBA league now rather than playing 1 year at the University of Texas. That's a big hit. He is really good. Rodney Terry, of course, got this story. Max Asmus from Oral Roberts. He, of course, as good as anybody in the transfer portal, has committed to Texas. That happened, a couple of days ago or so. And so they get Asmus. That's a big deal. They lose Holland, which, of course, is kind of a shot in the gut.
I'll take Max Asmus proven commodity over. I mean, look, Holland's probably going to be a great player too. But right now, if I'm Rodney Terry and I'm trying to build off the best Texas basketball season in a very long time last year, getting Max Abmas is one of the best things I can do to do that. So Max Abmas adds a ton of points to that lineup, which is already pretty good. And I don't even have to say, like, if you told me none of the rest of the roster and you told me you've got Max Abmas and Dylan Dessou, I'm like, all right. I'll take three other dudes and make something happen.
We'll make that still a really good soup or a gumbo. We got two really elite ingredients to cook it with.
Yeah, well, you just had the extra shrimp taken out of it with the Ron Holland, because that happened in reverse order. You had Abmas first committing, and you thought, okay, or Abmas and Holland, and and then on Dessou and all these guys, and now you're taking a good portion of the spice out. But no, they have a lot left over. It's just not quite as potent or as scrumptious as it was looking initially. So, yeah, I mean, they gain one, lose one, and that's a tough break, because I think had they just gotten the Abmas commitment and then nothing happens with Holland, then you're really feeling high and mighty if you're a UT fan. So that takes a little bit of the air out of the sails, but not enough to calm expectations or to cool any of the enthusiasm surrounding the roster. I know there's still a lot of doubters about Rodney Terry and recruiting and just like what he's going to be able to put together. I see some of that, like after Ron Holland's post, just go look at the mentions and you can see plenty of criticism. But there's still enough talent around there without a doubt, and there's still plenty of time for more to be added before next season to know that he's going to have a good roster and they're going to be a formidable team.
All right, we will get more into the draft. In fact, a little bit of that coming up with Kyle Yeomans, who used to be a guy that he was an intern for us back in the day, and he now is doing a lot of work and coverage for the Dallas Cowboys on game day, and also talk shows and podcasts and much more. His thoughts about some of the possible wheeling and dealing if Dallas was interested or others interested in their pick. Grayson Grundhoefer, 345, to kind of recap again or summarize Baylor's spring. Jon Cooper on the misses and the hits last night. And what are the elite possibilities tonight? Jim Williams at 4:30. This is 365 Sports.
Your springtime experience begins during the Jeep Celebration event this month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Save big and get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with total values up to $5,500 on both 2- and 3-row options. Or if that isn't enough, get a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $5,000 in total values. Plus, first responders get an extra $500. If we don't have exactly what you want, we can help you build the new custom Jeep of your dreams at Allen Samuels in Waco.
The future's bright, the time is now. College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Aaron, it's premium grade East Texas beef, and you're located just outside of Tyler. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, the kind of beef that people want. And then also your label is what catches people's attention as well.
Yes, we have a all-natural, pasture-raised Wagyu beef. It's a USDA label. That means our cattle never spend any time in the feed yard. They go straight from the pasture to the day of harvest, and we oversee the whole process from the beginning of the genetic choices when we make these matings to the time the calves are born, to the feed choices, all the way through when the animals are harvested. So we oversee the whole thing as a family, and we just believe, life's too short to eat average beef. So we offer people a chance to step up their game and try Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 20 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We've known him since he was 4. Kyle Yeomans with the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul, David Smoak. And we appreciate everybody's time today. So, Kyle, thank you very much. The Cowboys have done a better job of late of letting the draft kind of come to them, and they did again last night. How close were they either jumping up, or how many people offered to trade to get where they were?
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me. And 4 years old, I think it was a little bit after that, just a tad bit. But you've known it's been a long time, and glad to be back on. Yeah, I think in terms of trading up, I don't think they were really interested in moving where they were. We were sitting around at picks 20, 21, 22, and you're looking on your board, and there's multiple first-round picks still available. Most of the second-round picks, the early second-round picks that they had on their board, were still there. They felt really good about the options that they had on the table whenever their pick kind of rolled around at pick number 26. So I think for the most part, moving up wasn't necessarily an option, but because of the options, they at least answered the phone and they took some calls from both Kansas City, who was looking to move up from 31, and then the Las Vegas Raiders, who were looking to move up from 38. Both got on the phone, both went to Dallas and were looking for an opportunity to try and slide in to that 26th overall pick. Dallas said, no, thank you. We don't necessarily know what the compensation was on the other side of that, but we do know that there was an offer made. They said no. And then after they made the selection of Mazi Smith at pick 26, Kansas City actually called Dallas back and said, well, you got our guy. That was who we were going to go up and select. So instead, Kansas City stays put, and they go up with an edge rusher at the end of the round. So things could have gotten wild yesterday, even more than I think they already were wild on night one.
Yeah, Kyle, what are your assessments of Mazi Smith, the position defensive tackle they've addressed in the second round recently? Overwhelming failure in Tristan Hill, and just didn't work out at all. Injuries mostly the culprit of that. And another Michigan man around that same spot in the draft, like Taco Charlton. Those are the negatives, but he seems built a little bit different than those two guys.
Yeah, he's a different player, no doubt about it, than both Tristan Hill and Taco Charlton. And this is the first time they've invested in a defensive tackle in the first round since they took Russell Maryland back in 1991 with the first overall pick. So it's been quite some time since Dallas has even looked at that position in the first round. And I think the thing about Mazi is that he scratches an itch. He fills the need, and he checks the box for the Cowboys that you got to stop the run, right? I mean, you go up against Philadelphia, who can run the football. New York has a ground game. Even Washington can run it a little bit. And there were times last year, especially whenever you got into playoff scenarios and you really kind of got to the later parts of the season, you needed a big body up front. Jonathan Hankins, who was banged up for the final 5 games, where Dallas combined for 6 sacks in the final 5 games of the season after having 48 in the first 11 games of the regular season. So you need that big body, and not only is he better than Jonathan Hankins, and he's more refined than Jonathan Hankins, but he still hasn't hit the ceiling yet. So I think a lot of national media had him a little bit further down, maybe early second round, but there was no chance, or at least the Cowboys felt like there was no chance, that Mozzie Smith would have made it to them at 58. You could confirm that just by the fact that the Chiefs were going to come up and try and select Mozzie in the first place anyways. So Mozzie would not have been there on day 2. So the value is there. And then you also look at need. That was a need for the Cowboys to try and stop the run and get somebody on the interior of that defensive line. He checks both of those boxes as one of the best run defenders in college football last year.
Kyle, tonight, 58 and 90, at least the way that it stands right now, as we talked about at the start. There's trades that can happen, and that could very well shake up their picks, but they'll be waiting a little while tonight for 58 and then to 90. Where are your thoughts as they enter the second and third rounds and areas of focus?
Yeah, I think you now shift that attention to the offensive side, right? Because going into the draft, you point to the offensive unit and say that's the unit that needs the more talent. They need the more influx of fresh prospects to kind of rotate through, especially based off of what they've lost, and then also some of the holes that still remain through the offseason. So I think now you're looking at offensive line. Who is going to be your left guard? Who's going to be your starting tight end? Because if you wait until day 3 to pick a tight end, are you just picking competition for Jake Ferguson? If you're picking a guy in the second round, like maybe a Sam Laporta out of Iowa, possibly a Darnell Washington from Georgia, or a Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, those are all upgrades over Jake Ferguson. But there's not a ton of those that are still on the board. So I think 58 is a very real possibility that a tight end could be in play. And then it goes back to what I said earlier about defense, and you have some holes on defense too. Maybe they find some depth at linebacker. Maybe they go and take a corner that they really like. But I think for the most part, the focus is now offensively, and it starts up front with the guys that are going to be blocking for Dak Prescott, or possibly somebody for Dak Prescott to throw the football to.
The video of Mozzie Smith, and watching him anyway during the season, the last couple of years, he is absolutely disruptive. Kyle, was there anyone that slid into the early 20s or late teens that Dallas at least felt like, or you said they never even budged on what they were going to do at 26?
No, I think there was one name at the earlier parts of the first, maybe 2 names. I'll throw 2 names out there. It would have taken them getting past 20, and neither one did. The first one was Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle from Tennessee. He didn't make it out of the top 10. And then the other one was Will McDonald, the fourth, the edge rusher from Iowa State, who I know down there in Big 12 country, you've seen plenty of Will McDonald the last couple of years. They really liked him. I think if either one of those names would have made it to 20, maybe 21 or 22, they would have gotten on the phone and made those calls. But when it got to that point and both of those names weren't on the board, they really liked Emmanuel Forbes too, but I don't think he was a trade-up scenario. I think it would have been either Wright or McDonald. When they were both gone, I think they were able to stay pat and feel very comfortable about what they were selecting at 26.
Kyle, this trade is going to be judged by fans over the careers of Mozzie Smith, Joey Porter Jr., who's not been picked yet, and Nolan Smith, who went to the Eagles, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it will be. And it goes back to, and I hate even throwing this comparison out there because Mozzie Smith and Taco Charlton are different players completely. But that's what happened back whenever the Taco Charlton pick was made, because you had TJ Watt there. You had the selection available. You could even push it further into the conversation of where it went right for you, where Micah Parsons and Rashawn Slater, they will always be kind of that 1-2 punch of, okay, you could have gone here, you could have gone there. You made the right pick in the Micah Parsons scenario. You made the wrong pick in the Taco Charlton scenario. So for the most part, yes, they will be put together. I'm still trying to figure out why Joey Porter Jr. is falling in the first place. Is he going to last very long tonight? Still to be seen. I haven't heard anything specifically, but at this point, the fact that he fell out of the first round makes me think there might be a medically induced red flag there along the way. There may be something that popped up in Indianapolis or through these 30 visits that teams just aren't comfortable with. And if that's the case, then I don't think it's fair to even throw Porter into the conversation with Mozzie Smith, because I really don't think Porter was on the board at that specific moment, they were that comfortable with Mozzie Smith overall.
What do you think Mike McCarthy was discussing when he was on camera? Which obviously sometimes that's almost like Hollywood, and the Cowboys are known for putting on a show. But it did seem that he was kind of having a pretty intense conversation. Obviously, to me, he was trying to make sure they'd got Mozzie Smith right there. But what do you think he was saying?
I think there was a debate on maybe another prospect that was in there. I don't want to say any names because I don't have any concrete names. It was rumored going into last night that Sam Laporta was a highly touted prospect in the room and a tight end. We know last year at the middle parts of the second round, Mike McCarthy really wanted Trey McBride, who was the top tight end on the board in the 22 draft. So maybe he was fighting for that tight end. I think that's certainly a possibility. Or maybe he's fighting for an offensive lineman because he's been very adamant this offseason about running the football. So I think if I had to guess, and I know just from talking to people, it was a debate between a player and Mozzie Smith, but they settled on Mozzie Smith. Everybody was very happy with the decision. They just wanted to make sure they covered all their bases before making the pick. And whenever they did, they were very comfortable with it. But if I had to guess on who the players would be, it would either be one of the tight ends or one of the offensive linemen on possibly who they could even take at 58 moving up in the next couple of hours.
Kyle, running back wise, do you think that might be, now that they did not, obviously the dream scenario didn't happen, not even close to happening, that is now based on Mozzie Smith and kind of what they need around a running back, that's maybe a third round or later pick?
No, I don't think it's third round or later. I think it's on the board today. It might take the right scenario to get there. I don't think overall it would take a running back, or they would take a running back over these offensive linemen or over these tight ends. But if you get close enough to a running back and maybe some of these players that they really like are off the board initially, I don't think they would be scared. They brought in guys like Zach Charbonnet, who's a second-round, third-round prospect out of UCLA. He would be a great complement with Tony Pollard. I put him in an article this morning along with Devon A-Chain, from Texas A&M, who just brings some extra element of speed to his game. So I think running back is on the table. Is it the top need in day two? Absolutely not. But is it a need that could be addressed if the right player is available and the board falls the way that it does? Yes, I think there is a chance they walk out of day two with a running back.
Kyle, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. We're proud of you, what you're doing. Dallas Cowboys TV, Kyle Yeomans with us on 365 Sports to kind of give us a little bit of some perspective on what might have occurred, what maybe Dallas was seriously looking at, or vice versa, at their pick at 26.
Did a tear drop from your eye, Paul, when Bijan Robinson was announced the Atlanta Falcons?
You can see it on video. We live streamed the draft in the NFL channel. No, I didn't think it was going to happen. So, I think a teardrop dropped from my eyes had he been at 26.
Yeah.
Just been sitting there at 26. But then, not only did Bijan Robinson go at 8, Jahmyr Gibbs went at 12.
Yep.
All this like running back value, it's all in the eye of the beholder.
It's almost like all the stuff said before the draft is a bunch of baloney, and everybody's saying whatever they need to say to get to where they ultimately want to be when the draft arrives.
I think what the Texans did last night was, from the jump, artistry, because if John McClain is starting to believe that they're not going to draft a quarterback, then they have sold well.
Yep.
They have really sold it well, because John's BS detector is as good as anybody's. He's been doing this a long time.
He invented it.
Yeah, exactly. So when John's going, look, I keep hearing about Tyree Wilson. So, and he didn't, and it got through the detector on him a little bit. I mean, he went back and forth if you read his articles on Gallery Sports. So I was like, well, I guess they're going to do something kind of wild to shake up the draft. And what they did was they made sure that everybody was, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And maybe held off the barrage and took C.J. Stroud. And then while everybody was gobsmacked about it, they called the Cardinals and said, yeah, we'd like that pick. We want Will Anderson. So D'Amico Ryan's first draft going really well, in my opinion. And I think Nick Caserio was really good. It remains to be seen how they work out with that, but I still think it was great that nobody knew what they were going to do, and then they did what they did, which was the most aggressive thing the Texans have ever done in the draft by a long shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll mostly agree. I never bought the whole C.J. Stroud wasn't going to be the guy. I never really bought into that. But to your point, if a bunch of people are saying it, I don't really care. It doesn't change my opinion. But if John McClain's starting to say that, then I can see where all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, they're really not going to probably take C.J. Stroud because John McClain's saying it. So, yeah, I mean, they worked that beautifully, like you said, and who knows what the debate was like, but it sounded like they had their ducks in a row the way they executed that. There wasn't too much like, I don't know, let's change our – they had that drawn up pretty well. So for his first draft, DeMeco Ryans handled that first part of this draft beautifully, and you have to be over the moon to get the two guys that you got, no doubt about it. Let's see what they do with the rest of this class, obviously.
Who knows? Maybe got the best quarterback and best defensive
might
player.
have.
Yeah.
I mean, on paper, you arguably got the best defensive player, and you got the second best quarterback. So, yeah, that's a haul for night one, but excited to see what they do the rest of the way. And that draft was fun. Like the first half of it was really fun. The first couple hours of it was really fun. I still enjoyed the latter half as well, but you can't beat like Bijan or the way the Texans started, and then Bijan's going, and it's just Lions getting another running back. There's just a lot of stuff that was happening that made that enjoyable.
All right, so the tight end, the Cowboys do want to look at a tight end, right? So the one kid what's the one who was picked like at 21 or 2?
Dalton Kincaid.
Kincaid. Is he the one from Utah?
Yes, he was the one.
I like him a lot.
The Bills traded ahead of the Cowboys, to get him.
All right.
Yeah.
So Mayer's still there.
Yes, Mayer is still on the board.
Who's the next best tight end?
I would say, depending on your perspective, it's either Sam Laporta from Iowa or Darnell Washington from Georgia.
I thought the linebacker from Iowa, as much of a good player as he is, I thought that was a little bit early. But a lot of the AAR, Dallas likes just those splash picks. Mozzie Smith ain't it. We'll see. You don't know.
That might actually have been just like the smart pick,
Okay.
not the splash, not the flash, but not the flash, but the guy that'll make the splash. And that's the thing. You don't win draft night, but you win the rest of the way. That's what the hope is for Cowboys fans for sure.
Was Zach Martin a splash pick?
That's the thing. Yeah,
not at all.
Hall of Famer.
Neither was Travis Frederick,
and probably was on his way there if he doesn't retire early. So. Sometimes with the Cowboys and sometimes with anybody, but particularly the Cowboys, when they make one that might be boring to you, then that usually works out. And everybody, and the narrative on Taco Charlton, which is why it's changed for poor Mozzie Smith, is that, this is Rod Marinelli's guy. Rod Marinelli knows him. Rod Marinelli knows. And Taco's not built like Mozzie. That's just how, there's different guys.
Well, and I know we got to go here, but to be fair to Cowboys fans as well, like, you could kind of feel like when Mozzie Smith got picked, it's kind of like a little deflation of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it makes sense and all that. But they had been force-fed Bijan Robinson takes for about 4 months. And so, when they're entering the draft, like, maybe and then he wasn't there, obviously, but that you'd kind of set yourself up for it's the Cowboys and it's going to be like a CeeDee Lamb guy.
Can you imagine if he would have kept dropping?
Oh, yeah. No, it would have been insane.
It would have been insane, the speculation.
But that was probably the smart pick, yeah.
We are monitoring the weather with Brady and KWTX. We have both his radar, which is like unbelievably ugly with the dark red and the green and everything else. And yes, there's a tornado warning in Bell and Coryell County. There's also some movement. We're looking at some video with one of the watchers or chasers. And there's kind of a little bit of something that looks like it could at any time become something. We understand it. What you all were worried about with us on Wednesday, we appreciate it. We'll continue to monitor the situation throughout the show. So we're going to be here as long as we possibly can. When we come back, Baylor Spring is done. Picked up a couple of players in the defense on portal. Now what's next, if anything? And Grayson Grundhoefer will let us know. 365.com, our recruiting specialist, co-host of the Bearcast, is next. Dr. Kent Petty is come up now with, let me see, it's called semaglutide. It is it's a medicine. It will help with body fat. It could also help you, if you want, with what's going on with your body in general as you get older. I have told you many, many times what's going on with testosterone. But he does more than that. Dr. Petty does not just worry about testosterone. He worries about, as I've told you, PSA, prostate, cholesterol, and so much more, high blood pressure. He is not just worried about testosterone, but your whole full meal deal of your body. PettyClinicLowT.com is where you can go to get more information. PettyClinicLowT.com in the top left-hand corner, email and phone number. And then you can tell him I sent you for whatever reasons it might be, and he can take care of you or give you options or make sure you at least get your blood work done. He and his staff will set that up. You go get it. He'll get the results. He'll be in contact with you. PettyClinicLowT.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Dozens of 2023 Buicks are on the lot and priced to move at Richard Carr Buick. A prestigious luxury SUV without the luxury price. Experience the quiet escape and premium drive of a Buick SUV on a test drive today at Richard Carr. Right now, qualified buyers get a 2023 Buick Encore GX at 3.9% for 60 months, plus save $1,000 dealer discount or save $3,500 on a 2023 Buick Enclave Avenir in stock. See dealer for details.
Count on us, a dealer to trust. Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker room, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We have all been fortunate here on the set to be at NFL drafts. I've been to a few more, but we have been to a lot of them. And the atmosphere is always amazing. The scene in Kansas City was phenomenal. Philadelphia, phenomenal. Nashville was phenomenal. And, of course, sometimes the weather can get a little bit dicey. But we're now joined by Grayson Grundhoefer. We will get to Baylor and spring drills done, and now what's left in the transfer portal or going. He was in Kansas City for the NFL draft. Grayson, thanks for your time. I don't know if I've ever seen a better atmosphere. What was that like?
Well, guys, I mean, it was my first NFL draft that I've ever been to. So, to go there and experience it and get to see kind of this just crazy environment. I don't know what the reports are right now of how many people were there, but it was quite the scene. I was really impressed with the way they did it, the whole setup. Kansas City did a fantastic job, and it was actually my first time in Kansas City as well. So, yeah, it was great, a lot of fun. This draft is kind of a really weird one, a lot of, crazy twists and turns, and to see the Texans, draft C.J. Stroud and then move up immediately to 3 and take Will Anderson was kind of a great initial start to the draft as well. So, yeah, overall, really fun experience and something I definitely won't forget.
Grayson, your Colts took a guy named Richardson a few years ago. It didn't work out. How do you feel this Richardson will work out?
Yeah, Trent Richardson, as you're mentioning, he did not work out, but he didn't really go in line with a lot of the other Alabama running backs. But, I think for Indianapolis, it's big for them to kind of go out and kind of establish a brand and an identity under their new head coach, Shane Steichen. And so they had to draft a quarterback. They've been kind of going through the years with these veteran quarterbacks, trying to make it work. And really the only one that worked was Phillip Rivers, because they went 11-5 that year. But outside of that, with Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan, it just did not work. They need to start over, reboot. And I think Richardson is an exciting talent who probably has the highest ceiling of anyone in this group, but also probably the lowest floor as well, because the accuracy is, quite alarming. But what he can do athletically, his frame, his body, the fact that, he's going to be a big quarterback who can withstand a lot of hits, kind of like a Josh Allen can, is really, really intriguing, especially with kind of, arm strength that he possesses. So, yeah, I think the Colts did a nice job, and they didn't have to trade up. So they didn't have to get rid of picks. So overall, I felt like they did a really nice job finding their guy.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Baylor spring game's now over. We know throughout the spring, Blake Shapen and Sawyer Robertson were dueling for the starting spot. Dave Aranda gave an opening to the fact that they had an answer that was pretty open for a coach, and that led to the possibilities that he could name a starter here pretty soon. That obviously hasn't happened this week, but just coming out of last Saturday, coming out of the spring, and the fact that there's no decision right now, just what did you think about the quarterbacks, and what do you think of the room as we talk right now?
I mean, I continue to hope that they kind of wait to make a decision till the fall. But, I mean, the way Dave Aranda talked about it, I would be pretty shocked if they don't name a starter, and I would be pretty shocked if that starter isn't Blake Shapen. And the simple reason for it is just because throughout camp, Shapen played really well, and Shapen was getting the majority of the reps with the ones, and he was, by all accounts, doing a very nice job. And I think the biggest thing for him is he took a nice step forward this spring as far as leadership goes. And that was something that I think was really awkward for him a year ago, because Gary Bohannon was a true leader of this team. Blake Shapen came in, won the job, but just because you win the job doesn't necessarily mean that it's quote unquote your team. And so I think, by the time fall came around, it still wasn't quite his team. And so I think because of that, you saw a situation where once things kind of unraveled a little bit, there wasn't a stabling presence at the quarterback position. And so now I think Shapen's taken that big step forward. He's another year older, another year wiser, another year more mature. And I think that really showed throughout the spring. Now, saying that, Sawyer Robertson's very talented. And I think if you were to go off of just who has the higher ceiling, who has more potential to, be a high NFL draft pick or, those type of things, I think the answer is Sawyer Robertson. But the question is, how quickly does Sawyer adapt to the offense, and how quickly does he pick up these things to a point where Dave Aranda and Sean Bell and Jeff Grimes can really sit there and say, hey, this guy gives us the best chance to win games. I don't think he's given them that answer quite yet. But by the time the fall rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if Sawyer ends up being the guy, or if at some point, Sawyer takes the job sometime during the middle of the season, because he is very talented, and we saw flashes of that in the spring game.
Grayson, is it unfair to say that Blake Shapen, his leadership abilities, whatever, they've gotten better? Aranda mentioned that to me a couple of weeks ago too. But did he look any different to you as far as his throwing, his footwork, what he could do? Did he look any better to you?
I think that's probably the biggest kind of red flag, Smokey. It's just the simple fact that when you watched him play, there were still things that stood out to you that on film from last year were problems that he had. And in a game like the spring game, he's not getting hit. And truthfully, that was one of his biggest problems last year, was when he did try to run away from pressure. When he would get hit, a lot of times he fumbled the football and he had issues with ball security, or he would, force something downfield that would be intercepted. And so you don't really get to see that in the spring game, but what you do get to see is at times him having sloppy footwork, at times him trying to rely on his arm talent alone instead of setting his feet and really trusting his technique. So yeah, you saw some things that were a little bit scary, but I will also tell you, you also saw the leadership at the beginning of the game when he's going out there as the singular leader of the unit as they're stretching and getting everyone fired up. And I also think that, there were times where I saw him throw the football in the spring game where I was sitting there going, hey, you know what? That looks a lot more accurate than the Blake Shapen that we saw last year. So there were a few things that, kind of raised the red flag, but then there were also some things where I sat there and went, okay, I see what the staff is seeing, and maybe this is just a day where, he simply didn't quite have it the way that he had it throughout the spring, which I know people like to overreact to, but I simply am not going to at this point.
Grayson, 2 days left in the transfer portal. Not a whole lot of spots really available for Baylor to add somebody, but do you expect anybody in the next couple days?
Well, they do have a visitor coming this weekend. So Utah State transfer cornerback Ajani Carter is going to take his official visit this weekend. It was supposed to be last weekend, but he actually moved it. So he'll be on campus, I guess today would be when he arrives. Be a big one. He's been kind of a priority target for them since the moment he entered the transfer portal. And, of course, he's very familiar with Byron Bonds, who, of course, committed to Baylor last week. And then they also got the commitment, earlier this week from Trevin Maya from Oregon. So, you add that together, they have one spot available. I simply feel like it's going to be a cornerback based on the offers that they sent out. But they've addressed the needs. They addressed the defensive line. They addressed the jack position. And now it's trying to figure out, find one more guy in the secondary who can come in and be a true leader for that unit amongst a lot of young guys who don't have a ton of experience.
We talked to Maya earlier this week when he made his commitment. We hadn't talked, you and I, about that, though. I think it was after the podcast. So what were your thoughts on picking him up, and do you feel like that does answer the questions that they had remaining coming out of spring as far as the D-line goes?
Absolutely huge. And I reported this on Pick'em 365, but, you're dealing with these injuries that they had through the spring. When you're talking about Jarrell Boykins getting hurt in the spring game, Trey Emery not participating in spring, those two were an issue. Of course, we didn't get to see Jackie Marshall either, but I think that was more of a minor injury type thing, why he didn't play in the spring game. But you put all that together and you sit there and go, hey, they need a lot more on the defensive line. They need another body. They need more depth. Some of their young guys aren't quite ready yet. And then they also have young guys who are enrolling in the summer. So a lot of young faces still in that room. It really felt like they needed one more piece. And I feel like Maya really brings that to the table. He's very versatile, about 6'5", 290, 295 pounds, a guy who actually made the move from edge to being a true guy who can play on the interior of the defensive line, can play as a 5-tech, a 4-tech, can really do a lot of different things. But ultimately, I think he's going to be the true backup to Gabe Hall, while also coming in and playing multiple different positions as needed throughout the season. So huge as a depth piece, and then also don't forget he has 2 years of eligibility. So you're going to get him for 2 years, which I think is a pretty big deal as well. So he really shores up some things as an older guy who I feel like has his best football ahead of him, which is also really important. Not to mention the connection with Matthew Pallage. So you know that Pallage went out, got him because he knows he can fill a particular need that Baylor has going into the fall.
Grayson, I know that I had a chance to visit with both, and you talk to guys that are even looking at possibly committing to Baylor, so you get to know a bunch, tons and dozens of players. Who has the better personality, Ma'ai or Vaughns? Because I think both of them have dynamic and maybe a little bit of a spark in that personality flavor too.
They do, don't they? I think they both do. You know what? I think if I'm going to pick one, I think it's going to be Byron Vaughns. And the reason I say that is because he's got this alpha mentality. And I just think there's this thing that Baylor's been missing as far as the spark and as far as, just having a true, gritty person on that defense. A guy who's going to come in there and have a swagger about them and really come out and play with this unique physicality and confidence. And that can be infectious a lot of times. And based on what I've heard from him, it just seems like he's ultra confident in his abilities, which he should be, because I do think he's a very dynamic transfer addition and a guy who's going to wreak havoc in the Big 12 in the backfield this year. I'm anticipating big things from Byron going forward into next season.
All right, so you have the two defensive players. There's the thought about the cornerback position. Do you feel like Baylor's going to be pretty good when it comes to any attrition or anything that might catch anybody off guard?
That's been a huge talking point, I think, for Baylor fans, and I know on our website as well. And honestly, it's kind of shocking because when a head coach goes out and takes, 14, 15 guys from the transfer portal, you would feel like that a fan base would be really satisfied with kind of that approach. But it really hasn't been like that. And a big reason for it is because I think a lot of people want them to continue just adding more and more talent and, maybe, trying to get guys into the transfer portal or things like that. But that's not really how Dave Aranda and the staff has built this program. But they still have been super aggressive, and I think for good reason. They had a lot of positions to fill, and they're going to continue to do that. But saying that, the simple fact of the matter is the guys who play at Baylor and the student athletes that are at Baylor, they all love Baylor. And for that reason, a lot of guys don't want to leave, even if they're not getting playing time, even if they're not, a superstar like maybe they thought they were going into college. They love Baylor, they love the culture, and they simply just, don't want to leave. And they're a part of that culture that Dave Aranda and the staff are building. And for that reason, I don't think there's going to be much attrition. There's only a couple days left, and I really don't think there's going to be much room for Baylor to go out and try to add any more guys at this time.
A year ago when they made the decision with Shapen and Bohannon, it happened immediately, really quickly, almost like he's gotten rid of some of his assistant coaches after a couple of different years. Do you feel like that maybe because nothing has been announced that there's a delay, that there may not be a choice, or do you feel like now he's kind of put himself on the spot where he has to still announce who's the QB1?
Wow, yeah, that's definitely an interesting question because you're right. The longer this lingers, the more you're kind of sitting there going, okay, maybe they talked about it and decided not to do it till the fall. I don't know if that's going to be something that we're going to have a true answer for, honestly, at all. I don't know if we're going to get that addressed one way or the other in the near future. But I do think because he said that, I think there's probably something to that I still feel like he is going to make a decision just because when you say something like that, very confident in the decision that they were going to make. But who knows? You're right. The longer it does last, they decided that wasn't the best decision for them at this. Just want to take their time with putting it out there. Who knows? But it is an interesting thought process. That's for sure, Smokey.
Thank you, Grayson. Glad you enjoyed it. Kansas City was unbelievable. Thousands and thousands of people that were there up close and even far back as well as they celebrated the Super Bowl for the second time with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback and Andy Reid as the head coach. Paul, you have one story on UTSA?
Yes, just came down from Max Olson. UTSA wide receiver Zachary Franklin has entered the portal. First team All-USA, All-CUSA stud, 94 passes, 1,136 yards, and 15 TDs last season. So Jeff Traylor's done a great job of holding on to his guys, but this kind of, nobody bats 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that everybody's going to suffer a loss at some point in time. I mean, everybody's going to get touched by the portal one way or the other, but the smaller you are, the more the chance rises, right? And so the fact that he's kept guys as intact as he has been pretty remarkable, but eventually there's going to spring a leak. There's just too much money being thrown out there, and like we can pretend and play fantasy all we want to and pretend like it's just all about the better opportunity, or it's about Zachary Franklin he'd done everything he could, so I don't blame him for searching new territory, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that were promising him the world too, so I understand it from his viewpoint that he's done a lot for the Roadrunners, and I'm sure there's some big opportunities out there on the reel for him, but that is a huge bummer for UTSA to lose him because he's been a big part of what they've done these last several years. So I'm highly intrigued to see where he may end up because I'd imagine there's a lot of programs that will be interested.
Okay, he had 94 catches for 1,136 yards, 15 touchdowns. He went to Cedar Hill. When I say that, does that mean anything?
Not
Joey
necessarily.
McGuire, coach there. Texas has done a really good job of going into Cedar Hill.
Josh Fleeks was in the portal and he ended up in Nebraska.
Yeah, that's true.
Just because you're from Cedar Hill doesn't mean you're going to always want to, or that Joey McGuire's always going to want to bring you in. That's not a relationship that they have to coexist in every way. So,
especially with the connection with he and Jeff Traylor.
Well, that, and also, do they need him?
No, I'm just saying.
I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't think that every Cedar Hill guy is automatically it's going to be Joey McGuire. So, maybe there's that, maybe there will be. But I would think, the Traylor relationship, that would be kind of weird, strain on that. But we don't know Zachary Franklin's viewpoint on this. And who knows? He could have a sick grandma in Lubbock for all
That's
we know.
Exactly
so
right. He could be going to whoever. Yeah.
We need far more information to form any kind of an opinion on that. All I do know about it is that I'm sure that there have been teams in his DMs, and I believe that because he's a very good player, as you reeled off his stats, and so somebody in need of a wide receiver is absolutely giving him a call here. If they haven't already, because he's going to be a wanted man, I bet.
When we come back, Jon Cooper, Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft, get his thoughts on what happened last night, what were the storylines that intrigued him the most, and what are some that he sees had, let's say, tonight with rounds 2 and 3. Also, we'll have Jim Williams, media consultant, today at 4:30 on our discussion involving Apple TV Plus. He's brought them up. A lot of people have, but he also wrote, remember, an article in Forbes about it, and the possibility of who they would hook up with linear. We mentioned the ESPN S4 slot. We'll hear from Jim Williams. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340, east of 84 in Waco. Alan Samuels, every month really is Ram Truck Month because that's an elite brand, award-winning, years of winning awards and being honored for what Ram trucks represent. 2023 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Stars at $4,250 in values plus 4.9% financing for 72 months. 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star, 10% off MSRP or 1.9% financing for 72 months. The Jeep Celebration event is continuing here as we're wrapping up the month of April. 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, $5,500 in total values during the Jeep Celebration event, and also the 2023 Jeep Compass Latitude, $2,000 in total values plus 5.9% financing for 72 months. 2023 Dodge Durango, $5,000 in total values. They're making deals. They've got a lot of, and I'm talking about legitimately what they get from the dealers, from where they come from, and they have cars, trucks, and SUVs on the lot, also looking for really good pre-owned cars to give you an opportunity to upgrade what you have. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
He has been our go-to guy.
Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
$20. Jon Cooper, Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft, has been our go-to guy for like the last 5 or 6, 7 weeks, and including earlier this week. We've seen now evidence of the first round, John, rounds 2 and 3 tonight. So what if you can, who were the winners? If there aren't that many, but who are the winners from last night?
Well, I've always said, and we've always said, the draft is like fine wine. You don't know how it's gonna age and what it's gonna be like until about 3 years down the road. But the first thing that hits me is Philadelphia. Getting both Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. That's a surprise to us. That Smith lasted as long as he did. As elite in athletic talent he is, and that Carter, was bypassed by a couple of teams that we thought he would be a good fit for. So yeah, we think Philadelphia, did very well. Houston, obviously, they did, we think, very well. Getting C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, two of the top, players in the draft. That's pretty hard to pass that up. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of teams that you could say did some real good things.
John, what did you think about Houston and their subterfuge all week, and then the trade that they made?
As far as the smoke screen about we're not going to take a quarterback and those kind of things. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down the night before the draft, actually 2 nights, 15 rumors that I had heard, and that was one of them, that Houston was not going to take a quarterback. Will Levis is going to go at the top. And of those 15 rumors, 2 of them came true. So, that old general manager that told me a long time ago, listen to everything, but don't believe much of it. And I think there's a lot of stuff that comes out, and I don't know who creates it and how it gets out there, but there's an awful lot of stuff out there that is absolutely false.
John, Anthony Richardson goes 4th overall to the Colts. What do you think about that fit? And I guess, did he get bumped a little by the fact that the Texans made the move that they did, or was that about where you expected?
That's about where we expected. Our original thought was the Cardinals weren't going to stay at that spot and take Will Anderson. And if they traded down, we thought it would be for someone to take a quarterback, and the Colts might have been stuck with Will, maybe taking Will Levis or trading down themselves. But the way it worked out, that's the pick we kind of felt they would get all along. And I know there was talk that Will Levis was their guy. There was talk they were going to trade out of there, but that kind of stayed true to what we thought.
So what do you think about Will Levis and the fact that he's still sitting there after the entirety of the first round went by last night?
Well, the question is, who really needed a quarterback after that? We knew there were 3 that needed one, and you could make a case that Las Vegas would take one, and you could make a case that Detroit, would take a quarterback, Atlanta. But when push comes to shove, they have guys that can play, and they decided they didn't need a quarterback, and no one else really needed one. Now, some of those teams that, I mentioned, like even the Rams, and the Vikings, they will probably be in play for both of those quarterbacks that we've been discussing, Will Levis and Hendon Hooker. So it's not as much Levis, although he was clearly, in our minds, the 4th best quarterback, and maybe even the 5th best quarterback if you consider Hendon Hooker, who we think is, if he's completely healthy, we would have him number 3 on our board. If you consider that, that's where the need is, and those guys are going to get taken.
Mozzie Smith, Michigan. Your thoughts about the fit for Dallas at 26?
Extremely powerful player. I mean, they needed an interior, defensive tackle, and that's a need-based pick the way we look at it. We had him as more of an early second-round pick, but, Kalijah Cansey, going off the board when he did, kind of moves that board up a little bit in the defensive tackle mode, and we think he's a solid player. Powerful. He pushes the pocket. He's going to help your edge rushers. He's not the quickest guy at the snap. He's not going to be one of those guys that's going to, beat an interior lineman off the snap and get to the quarterback. He's going to knock him back and bull rush into his move. But he's a solid two-gap player playing the run, plays at a good pad level. And Dallas will get a lot of use out of him.
John, was there anything that you saw last night, like maybe Detroit and what they did, or something that jumped off of that maybe got out over their skis a little bit?
Well, two things stood out.
I think we lost John for a second. Paul, see if we can get him back again. Jim Williams right around the corner. Paul's top five. We're going to do it a little bit earlier today because of some of the impending weather that, again, has been tormenting the Central Texas area. Most of it right now has been down near Killeen, Fort Hood, and a little bit on the southwest side of where we are. Jon Cooper, Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft. Paul, go ahead and ask the question again. And John, sorry about that.
Yeah, John, what stood out to you last night? Maybe Lions or somebody getting out over their skis a little bit.
Well, Detroit, that was a surprise. Number one, taking the running back, and number two, an inside linebacker. Jack Campbell, we think, deserves to be a first-round pick, especially in light of some of our more recent evaluation. But the Lions have two solid inside linebackers. They're both more will linebackers, so I could see where having that Mike linebacker, that big, tough, physical guy that can also stay on the field in coverage situations, makes sense to that. But we thought they had a much bigger needed cornerback, and there was still a pretty solid cornerback available in Christian Gonzalez when they took Gibbs. And, Gibbs is an electric player. He can hit home runs. He's got great speed, agility in traffic. He's going to be an impact player for them, but they still got to be able to stop people. And I'm sure that they will address the cornerback position later on. The Bears taking Darnell Wright was a surprise to us. We thought he was, lower than that. I know a lot of people like him. He's kind of a polarizing player. We saw the inconsistency. We think he's got great talent, and we think it's an upside play for the Bears. Whereas more of in our minds, a sure thing, and Skoronski was sitting there at the same spot.
John, how do you like the fit of Bijan Robinson with the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, in thinking and kind of rethinking that, I originally thought he was going to go a little bit later on, somewhere around 12 to 20, simply because of the position. But, he's a unique player. He's got great hands. He can run with power. He's got agility in traffic. I mean, with the skill set that he has and the receiver class not being as good as it is, you can see Atlanta, lining him up in the slot sometimes and really taking advantage of his receiving skill situationally. So not only will he be a great running back, but he'll be able to provide an awful lot in the passing game. So, in rethinking where I was at with a running back, I'm thinking that's a pretty good pick because he is a talented football player.
John, how much scrambling goes on, and I don't use that as in chaos, but maybe for some it might be, but how much scrambling goes on after the first round? There's 31 picks. Everybody takes a deep breath and, oh, my goodness, here we go. We've got 2 rounds, and then tomorrow there's 4 rounds. How much of that goes on from the end of last night, which is around midnight, to what we have today?
Well, it's surprising that if teams get surprised, I should say, and the board doesn't quite work the way it did. I think some of these edge rushers not going off the way people thought changes, people's mindsets going into the next day. So there is some scrambling that goes on, and teams do reset their board. They try to, create scenarios. I know, I've got, some NFL teams that we've been in contact with have asked for our stack the next day, what our next day stack would be, particularly in between the middle of after the third round. That's when it really gets, who are we going to take now? Especially if, some guys that they projected to be in that fourth were there. Because, there's a lot of guys right now that are kind of reevaluating their board in terms of who is actually going to be there at a position of need. And so they usually have about 5 or 6 guys for each spot. And hopefully one of those guys is there that fits. If not, they have to move on.
John, we could obviously unpack a lot more from last night, but I know you got to go and we do too. So if you could you leave us with just a couple of things that you're looking for later on tonight?
Well, I want to see where Will Levis and Hendon Hooker go, and I want to see these edge rushers, where they start to come off. I think there's still a solid group there. Same thing with the corners. Guys like Cam Smith, where are they going to go? That we, projected as a real solid player. Joey Porter Jr. I want to see where those guys go, the guys that we had projected as first rounders.
Hey, John, we appreciate it. Craig, you got one more?
Does Apu Ika go tonight from Baylor?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Does Siaki Ika, Apu Ika, go tonight from Baylor?
Yes, I think so. Oh, yeah. I would be shocked if he didn't.
Okay.
I think he's somebody's going to take him. He's going to be, in somewhere in that late second, third round area. Solid player.
John, thank you very much. Big Ten and SEC had 9 each. The Big 12 had 6. The ACC 4 and the Pac-12 3. Good for all of them that they had a nice chunk of players who were drafted in the opening round.
By the way, Craig, our lads has Apu Ika rated 3rd, and the two defensive tackles that went last night late, Kalasha Cansey and Mozzie Smith, both behind him at 4 and 5. Wow. So, I mean, again, those that might be, one's a 91, one's an 89, and one's an 88. But even still, I mean, that's what they think of Apu. So
yeah, I mean, I fully expect him to, but I don't, travel in the draft circle, so I don't know, if there's more new word going around on him or not. But yeah, never expected him to go last night. These last few months, at least, there was maybe thought prior to last season that he could be a first round type of guy, but. Didn't produce at the level to cement that. But, yeah, I fully expect him to go tonight. Just wanted to get that reassurance, and we'll be looking out for him.
That'd be great for Baylor, great for Siaki Ika, and, of course, his family and those who know him. Real quick, before we take the break, Jim Williams is coming back next. We've had Jim on a lot. This was one of the tweets from earlier today. He was looking at the numbers, and we've brought some of those up yesterday. For those who are asking about streaming, Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus has about no hard data from them, but about 55 million worldwide. Here are the streamers and their first quarter numbers. 2023 growth. Amazon Prime, 21% up. Netflix up. Disney up. HBO Plus, Hulu Max, Hulu, Paramount Plus, Apple TV, and the others. Remember, we mentioned ESPN Plus is up 42% with their numbers that have gone up quite a bit, and some of that is because of the bundle. Trey Morris, who was a VP and senior consultant, and Jim had a great going back and forth, and a very positive learning and kind of discussing the information. He said, Jim, correct on Apple Plus viewers. Despite more viewers, I contend that the usage of Apple Plus is the lowest of the streamers. So if the Pac-12 goes all in on Apple Plus, it will crush exposure to the league, teams, and players. It will also cost them perhaps a few teams. We will hear from Jim Williams. Thanks to Trey. Trey's part of SicEm365.com and also has even sent me a couple of nuggets about things we've done over the years. So we'll have Jim Williams. Cannot wait. One of our best promoters of what we do every day on Twitter. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com and the Central Texas Marketplace can do a couple of things for you of what you want. One is find out what is hurting you. That is a muscle, a ligament, whatever it could be, and your doctor wants a better look, and so you need to let them know about Ideal MRI. But they know. They know because Ideal MRI's state-of-the-art technology MRI machine is fantastic. The price is great at $497 or less. I've mentioned the times I've been inside of it, including about, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I paid $400 for the MRI. And sure enough, as always, I got a text from Dr. Rob Maxey. You'll get a text from somebody there and also your doctor because they can then look in the portal because the images are uploaded immediately as soon as they're available. And they found out that I had no issues just with prostate, making sure that there was nothing that didn't need to be there, but I have an enlarged prostate, dealing with that on an everyday basis. When it was my shoulder, got it back quickly. Lower back, got it back quickly. You get the same professional service and great customer service and the price of $497 or less every single time. If you need an MRI, if your doctor suggested MRI, you don't suggest it, you tell them. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
By the way, happy birthday to Daniel Golden, Jennifer's fiance. Daniel Golden, birthday today. Had a chance to visit with him a little bit earlier today. It's been a big week for them. And so happy birthday to Daniel Golden. By the way, Jim Williams, our guest media consultant, former executive in television as well, has family in town and still said he would find time for us here on 365 Sports. Jim, we always appreciate it. So you saw our discussion and scenario yesterday, which is very similar to something you had written about with Forbes.
Right.
And so when you saw or heard kind of what we were saying, what jumped out to you?
The nauseous feeling that George Kliavkoff would have in his stomach. The fact that they can't find a true linear partner, I think, is because remember we're talking ESPN is cable. There's still not a broadcast partner there. I would be, if they're gonna license, the content out, I'd go back to Ion, I'd go back to CW, I'd go to every network, including the Home Shopping Network, and find a way to get, some television eyeballs on it and work as best I could with them. But if this is where it ends up in, it's I'd have to have Tim Cook give that presentation.
Jim, is this the worst time that they could have imagined to try to negotiate this with? Look, NBC just added, Big Ten stuff, and there's going to be Big Ten stuff on Peacock. Peacock posted horrible numbers in the last quarter. ESPN, while they're trying to reshape everything, is laying people off left and right. So this is not the optimal time, and they're about to have a writer strike too on the other side of all this that they'll have to deal with as well. So this is maybe not the ideal moment for George Kliavkoff to even be picking up the phone and calling about these things.
Well, Paul, I mean, look, you're 100% right. The Bally's situation, where they're filing for bankruptcy with Sinclair. You've got the AT&T situation where they're trying to get out of the regional. I mean, that's kind of, if you talk to the guys at Scripps, back when Smokey and I started Scripps, those were the television stations that carried the local baseball and local basketball. They were the regional TV stations that carried the stuff. And it's kind of like going back in that direction in a way. So the leagues want the NBA, the Major League Baseball, and hockey, they all want those local rights back so they can kind of do what the MLS did, and that is offer direct-to-consumer, which is where the PAC would be. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about, guys. And that is, you're selling your games directly to your fans. If that's the way you go with Apple TV.
So, Jim, this was all a scenario, and this is one, like you said, that you've kind of touched on, and we touched on as well. It's remains to be seen, but if it holds close to true, and there is this leasing out of Pac-12 games by Apple to, let's say, an ESPN to fill that time slot, sure, how would that work? How would that work for all of the desired parties to where it makes everyone happy? Because the problem that I see is just getting the value out of that. If you're at ESPN, I mean, are you getting Oregon and Washington, or you get how would those conversations work to make all sides happy with the product that they're putting out there?
Gosh, Craig, I got to tell you, I was listening to you guys yesterday. I've actually listened to that thing now 4 or 5 times just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And correct me quickly if I'm wrong. If Apple's the top dog here, if they're putting the money in, right, and they're subleasing this to ESPN, right there, that's an interesting dynamic, because you're actually subleasing to one of your rivals. So you're subleasing, and you're paying the big freight. ESPN is not paying the big freight here. Mm-hmm. Why in the hell would you give them the best game you got?
Well, yeah, but isn't that
makes no sense?
I agree, and I think that's a great question from Craig. As we discussed that yesterday, and the scenarios would be if they want to give up who's going to want that? You would think Oregon and Washington would want the prime, the Saturday night games for visibility, right? Because the other options are not anything but streaming. Right. And there's no way the other schools in the conference, I don't care who they are, who they're aligned with, would ever accept that. And that's why I think that maybe there's been pushback, even though there's an idea, which, my God, they just want ideas. Yeah, I agree. And we asked that, how much money would ESPN pay, and would that be more for the Pac-12 or less?
Well, and the other thing, too, Smokey, is this. When ESPN telecast those games, okay? And, yeah, they did. The ratings were nice. No shade on the ratings. You couldn't get Oregon and Washington to play those games. They did not. No one in that damn entire Pac-12 conference wanted to play a 7:30 kick.
Oh.
So I'm, I listened to what you guys did yesterday, and kudos to you guys. I love you. I'm just thinking, this is a cluster beyond cluster. I can't, because ESPN is going to want stuff. Nobody's going to want to play it, except for the fact that if you play it, you get on national television.
Right.
How does that work? And by the way, the deal that MLS did with Fox and Apple, Apple is allowed to simulcast, the game on their package, so you can buy the package and not miss the game. Does ESPN get to simulcast that on ESPN Plus, or does Apple get to do the game too? I mean, how does that work?
But if that's the only, I guess you could say, linear option, wouldn't?
Yeah, I mean,
they wouldn't have much choice, would they?
But they meaning
Oregon, Washington, or anyone that wants to be on linear television for some extra exposure.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah,
no, you're absolutely right. They would have to play a 7:30 kick.
Jim, so I'm going to bring back something you brought up earlier and we've talked about before. I mean, I know that they don't want to do this, but it still seems to me like the CW is maybe their best option to get everything they would want.
Paul, I swear to God, I would be on the phone to the point where the people at the CW would hate to hear me. I would, look, no, again, Ion, right? That deal they did with the WNBA, I would tell, again, I would not ask for a single penny. I would just want clearance. I'd say, go ahead. And Apple, I think, would go with that because they need subscribers. So if you can have that time, okay, and you could barter that time out where you have time, they have time, sell time. And, we're going back to the old school way of doing this. Like I said, I would go to every network short of the Home Shopping Network until I got somebody that would give me some linear time because Ion, you're 100% right. CW and Ion have windows all day on Saturday. I would go there and just I'd be beating on the door till somebody listen to me because everybody else has football or something, of the linear networks. So on Saturday, I mean, if you look at, people forget there's golf on. People forget that NASCAR goes all the way to what is the first week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's almost at the end of November, December, December. Yeah.
So you've got all this, and don't forget you've got baseball going all the way to October, and then you've got the playoffs in baseball. So you got traffic all over the place here. So from a programming standpoint, it's you don't have that many windows, and even ESPN doesn't have that many windows.
Mm-hmm. So the MLS and Apple Plus are in this contract,
right?
Aren't the MLS owners? Have you heard anything about them being concerned that Apple might pull the plug because the subscriptions are only like 40% of the estimated goals?
All right, let me help out here. I never usually turn on my own, okay, but if I read another columnist from another newspaper who is bitching about this, I'm going to throw up. You're starting the first month and a half of a 10-year deal. How do you think that's going to work? It's not. I mean, come on. You expect that the day that you start selling these things, that it's going to fly off the shelf because you are now taking something that somebody watched for free on ESPN and Fox for years, and you're going to turn them into a streamer in a month and a half? Why do you think they did a 10-year contract? It's the same thing with Thursday Night Football. Amazon was probably happy that they got what they got. Think about this. They got 9 million, depending on whose numbers you think, they got between 9 million and 11 million homes watching football on streaming. Those beat the numbers that the NFL Network had. So, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that.
No, that's fine.
Beautiful, Jim.
I know that you're feisty, and I love this because you've put a lot of time into this along with others. All right, so if in fact it is the scenario of 100% of Apple TV Plus,
yep.
What do you think? What happens? Will there be, I'm not trying to get you to say this for clicks and views. We don't do this. But if they go 100% Apple TV Plus, if that's what happens, do you see anyone defecting from the Pac-12?
I got to say, yeah. Look, I can get to 7 votes and I need 8. I can't get to 8. And if I can't get to 8, I can't get to a grant of rights. If I can't get to a grant of rights, I don't have a conference. I'm counting Utah in that count.
In the 6 or the 7?
In the 7.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm being Pollyannish in this, but I'm counting Utah. The president of Utah has been an incredibly active gentleman in helping the negotiations along. I have heard nothing, crickets out of Oregon. And trust me, Washington is not going to vote if Oregon doesn't. So I think the coast is okay. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't think I have to worry about the coast from voting standpoint if I'm trying to get votes. The only one of the corner schools I'm going to get would be Utah. I'm definitely not going to get Colorado, and the 2 Arizona schools I don't think I'm going to get either.
Paul mentioned earlier about the bad timing. Sometimes it's just bad luck. It's unfortunate. But the Pac-12 did have a year ago a chance to react immediately. Everyone can mention what Yormark did, and that was great, and he was smart and all that, and he probably got some advice. But why not then, like Bowlesby did, reacting to adding 4 schools when they were on the campus and almost knocked out again? I'm not saying it's a media deal, but why would they not have just said, let's get this done immediately? Let's go. Let's make our future. Let's get some stability like Yormark tried to do and did for the Big 12.
Get out the dictionaries, boys and girls. The term is hubris. That's the only thing I can think, honest to God. I just think that they looked at it and went, come on, you can't be serious offering me that. And I can honestly tell you that I do actually feel sorry for George Kliavkoff, because honestly, guys, he worked for the presidents of the universities, and he has to do what they tell him to do. And if he takes that number and they just said, George, what are you nuts? There's no way this is going to happen. Then George has to go back and, tell ESPN and Fox, boys, this isn't going to get it for me. And then they say, well, this is the best we can do. And then he's out, shopping. And then the recession hit, and, shopping ain't, you're in trouble. And so I honestly think it was just the fact that people were overvaluing themselves. And look, that's something you take into consideration every time you go into these types of things. What is the quote unquote market value? And I think at the time, the market value for both conferences, because they were both damaged at the time, was probably about the same. And, and Brent went in, and he was smart enough, to go in and get the deal he got. And it was could he have gotten more? Perhaps, but he took what was offered him. And again, that was the smart deal there was that was an extension, not a, not a totally new contract. So that was a little easier to do because you're really just adjusting numbers on, in games and such. But, it's not anywhere near as hard to do as something totally from scratch, and especially from scratch with streamers and people who have never even done this stuff before. So, I only can imagine that it was they overpriced or overthought they were worth what the market was offering at the time.
Hey, Jim, we appreciate it. I know you have family in town, and I know you have a lot of connections in the TV network and cable business. Have you heard at all, and I'm not trying to start this at all, but I'm just curious, have you had anybody give you feelers that the turf war of who would leave or not, and most people think that it's still going to end up, finally, they're going to figure it out, right? That's what we've even said despite some of the stories, and there have been some thoughts like, wow, have you heard of anybody whatsoever is about to cross that foot across, whatever, draw that line in the sand and put their foot across that line from the Pac-12?
No.
Okay.
I have not. And by the way, because you guys did such a great job yesterday, I spent hours on the phone last night. I even texted Dennis Dodd, and he goes, "Hey, leave me alone. I'm at this draft." But he's nice enough to text you back later saying if you want to bother me, you can. I wonder what happened to Amazon.
I mean, ours was
my phone call. The first phone call this morning was, where the hell is Amazon? Did they just fall out of this 20 minutes ago? What's going on here? How did it end up ESPN and Apple? Not that you need another streamer in this mess, but I'm just saying. But look, it still ain't over, guys. So
no.
But if it is, if what and you guys have been, right a hell of a lot more than you've been wrong. If it ends up being this, like I said, the only person who might be able to talk him into it is Tim Cook. And I swear to God, I would have him in that room and talking to every president there. Because, he's a guy who can sit there and say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have pushed out, and we're not going, with hyperbole here. We've pushed out 1 billion devices that communicate throughout the world. You can't tell me that we can't figure out a way to get your people to see what you've got. Mm-hmm. Now, whether I believe that or not, I don't know, but I'm just saying Tim Cook's a hell of a salesman. So if this is going to be sold, it better be sold by Tim Cook and better not be tried to be sold by George Kliavkoff, because that's not going to work.
So finally, I know you got to go. What was the reaction when you tried to check on it? Where's Amazon?
The guys that I spoke to at Amazon were actually in Italy. So I don't know what I'm.
All right.
I have had some issues getting there. So they're there, and they did know, but they said if they got any information, they'd get back to me. So.
Jim, you're the best, man. We appreciate it. And sorry to take you away from your family, but we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hey, stay safe. I understand the weather's bad. I was in the chat room there for a while, and they tell me the weather's bad.
Thank you so much. Jim Williams.
You're well, guys. Have a good weekend.
Forbes, Zanger, columnist, and also media consultant with us on much of what we discussed with the possibility of the scenario involving Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus, and S4 being that slot to ESPN, but then how and who gets what games and how do you decide to do that and what teams then get left out even more. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street here in Waco. A hidden gem, absolutely fantastic selection of local craft whiskeys. I need to stop by there this weekend. I keep talking about TX whiskey. It's one of the ones I really do love, and I was in Fort Worth a couple weeks ago, and I had some, and I haven't gone and made that purchase to add to my collection. I think I'm going to do that because it was really, really quite fantastic. But look, if you want Balcones, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers, all there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great local Texas bourbons, fantastic craft beers. This is a great time to check and see how they churn the roster of craft beers there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. They're available on DoorDash as well, so if you're hanging out, maybe outside, if we have some good weather this weekend at any point, and, maybe just one would bring it to you, you can do that on DoorDash. Great customer service. The drive-through window is so fast, you won't even know what hit you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, behind the bank.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession? We
selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef, and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
We have some severe weather in the area, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up a little early today so we can get out of here. We don't want to have a repeat of what happened a couple days ago where get caught out in a storm and it's not good. So, top 5 draft questions heading into day 2. Number 5, what happens with Will Levis? There is a school of thought out there that if anybody thought this guy was a franchise quarterback, they would have drafted him in round 1. And, there are teams at the top that don't really need one. For example, the first pick tonight is Pittsburgh. They're coming off right after. So I'm curious to see what happens with him. I don't think he falls that far, but I do think he goes from being in a situation where, like Indianapolis, you probably don't expect it to play pretty soon to one like Los Angeles or Seattle or even Detroit, again, where he's going to sit behind a veteran for a little while?
I don't know. I kind of hope he falls to the third just to see how Mel Kiper reacts to it, man. He was he was about to lose his mind last night with Will Levis falling because it made him look stupid. And you could tell he felt stupid because he was getting very agitated and annoyed at the fact that Will Levis still wasn't being picked. But, yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see him in the green room. I read something, and I wish I could recall because I don't like just throwing crap against the wall, but I read something last night about maybe one of the issues, his personality-wise was a little bit arrogant, and maybe there's something to that. But, yeah, I mean, like our guy said earlier, there was a demand for quarterbacks right there at the top, and then there wasn't much of a demand after that. And so he unfortunately wasn't in that top-tier group and is still sitting there. But, yeah, that was brutal to watch. You could tell his family was getting very annoyed. I mean, I don't know if you were paying attention to that.
They've gone home.
Well, yeah. Did you watch them last night? Like all of them sitting there on the couch, and they were clearly aware of the cameras and throwing looks at the cameras because it's just the whole thing was so awkward, so awkward for everybody.
Aaron Rodgers and who was the other quarterback that dropped? You remember?
Johnny.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel was one of those that dropped as well. That was one that I think people were cheering for probably in some circles, but no, that was kind of brutal. But yeah, it was very awkward, and I hate that for people in general. But very interested to see where he goes.
Number 4, what else do the Texans have in store? I remain impressed. Maybe I'm just surprised that for the first time in a franchise's very mundane history, there is not, and I will say this, and I'm not trying to hate here, a more boring franchise than the Houston Texans. They picked the most obvious name they could pick at the beginning.
I agree with that.
And then from that decision on, they have not done things that are really all that exciting.
I've called them oftentimes like a creative team, like a generic creative team on Madden. Like when not lately, but when they first launched and it was like red, white, and blue Houston Texans. I was like, this is like some generic. Like it's like you couldn't get the NFL rights, so you created your own teams, and you're like the Houston Texans. That's what it felt like to me initially.
Yeah, and so that decision has kind of moved them forward on down the line. For example, the USFL team had a way better name, and they could have probably bought that name for pennies on the dollar until recently, the Houston Roughnecks. Way better name. But I digress on that.
Weren't it the Gamblers at one point?
Yeah,
the Houston Gamblers, especially sports betting now?
Yeah, all that stuff. But the Texans actually did something fun and exciting last night, and I'm curious to see what they do. I would see them moving back up into the second round. They're out of it right now, but they have a ton of picks, and you're not usually going to use 12 picks, and they have, even with the ones they trade away, they probably still have 12 picks, I think, next year too, left. So they've got a lot that they can do. Absolutely. So it's pretty interesting.
Now, I asked, I think on a text message earlier today, there's a point total value for players.
Yeah, they
picks, right?
They exceeded it.
They went like 4 times the point value, but they just got 2 cornerstones on either side of the football. But the value of normally what they would have done to get Will Anderson, for example, would have been like 95 points. And actually, they gave up like 265 points when you put points on draft picks.
Normally, I wouldn't on the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart, which is brilliant. Normally, I wouldn't. I would say that's kind of crazy. But again, I just gave you the reasons why. Like, they've been so boring. Like, again, sometimes you got to swing for the fences, and sometimes the chart doesn't matter. And I think last night is a time.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely got people talking. It created some excitement for that franchise. Let's see how, both pan out, obviously, and let's see who the rest of the class entails as well. But no, they hit a home run PR-wise and potentially on the field as well. I think it's created a little storm of excitement for that franchise that they haven't had in a while. I mean, they've had their J.J. Watts and Deshaun Watsons at times as well. They've had success, but it does feel like a brand new, totally new era for the Houston Texans. And I'm happy for Jalen Petrie, a guy that we know pretty well, that he's going to be playing alongside Will Anderson now, and that'll be great for him. That'll help him a ton, I would imagine. So yeah.
Yeah, they're the spaghetti noodles with butter of NFL teams right now.
Don't hate on it.
Wait a minute.
Don't hate on it.
You don't like spaghetti noodles with butter?
It's an insult to my people.
Oh, no. It works
Oh,
sometimes.
my God.
Garrett, are you on board?
Dude, I literally had shrimp and pasta last night.
Yes.
With some butter,
Yeah,
So I'm
there you
about
go.
that life.
I mean, just spaghetti
Come on,
noodles
Paul.
and butter.
I'm not so sure just like noodles, spaghetti noodles with a little butter sauteed, whatever, just by itself is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to live. You got to live.
Sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan on there.
Shrimp pasta, that's amazing.
Oh, yeah. But usually you've got more ingredients than just the butter. You know, and
I
the
put a
noodles.
few chives on there.
Okay, then you're adding an ingredient. I said spaghetti noodles and butter. That's 2 ingredients.
I still rock with noodles
and butter.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that tonight just to spite you.
I'll never do it. I think it's ridiculous. Number 3, will any major vets get moved? Dalvin Cook to Miami has been hot for a while. DeAndre Hopkins, maybe the Cardinals have cooled on that a little bit. I still think because of his massive contract, he could get moved. I think you got to throw DeAndre Swift into that mix right now, too. After Jahmyr Gibbs got drafted last night and they signed David Montgomery in the offseason. So there's several guys who could find their way to new homes tonight. And Dalvin Cook might be the first one. I think there's a good chance that he gets dealt tonight and maybe to Miami, and that'd be a great fit. He'd be back home. Believe me, he would love it. So, and look, you've got to – if you're the Dolphins, I think it's good to go get him, get a player while he's still effective at that position. And then see what happens down the line. But because they don't have a lot of draft picks tonight. They lost their first round one because of the Tom Brady thing. So I'll be curious to see if any major guys get moved tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you ran down the list. That's always a possibility. But, yeah, those are some names that would certainly, perk your ears up a little bit. So, yeah, I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah. Number 2, are the Lions crazy or crazy like a fox?
Even Gibbs was stunned by this pick.
I thought like on paper, and I'm not a draft nick, I don't follow it that closely, but just based on who they got for the move that they made, that seemed like it was, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, to basically draft a slightly younger running back, but similar to the one that you already had, and then just an Iowa linebacker. It's like they were not inspiring anybody to get super excited. But, we'll see what they do with the rest of it. I mean, it's, we're all coming to these final grades, and there's still 2 days to go.
Yeah.
And tonight's a pretty big night of 2 rounds. So we'll see. But they seem like they're heading in the right direction, though. So maybe they know something that we don't. It's just not going to be, sexy when it comes to their actual picks. Or what you quite expect.
And look, I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, and I think
he's a sexy pick, so to speak. Yeah,
but
he's got a quick twitch.
But he only had 900 yards rushing last year. It's those kind of things that that's his career high.
Well, how many yards receiving did he have?
Well, he had a few of those. So he had a few of those. Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing about Bijan. Both of those guys are dual threat. Bijan's a better runner, but also as good a receiver, if not better.
Yeah. But in Jack Campbell and Dan Campbell, that's kind of a match made in heaven right there. They're kind of very similar. An Iowa defender and, Mr. We're going to bite your kneecaps, I think kind of fits. Number 1.
They were expecting the Texans draft, though. Once they made their moves, they were thinking some big old names, and it wasn't quite that.
Yeah. Number 1, do the Commanders even want a quarterback?
Yes, of course they do, but they were in a position. They were pretty much – now, Levis was there, but have you heard why he dropped?
No. Yeah. Other than that,
I mean, I just said part of what it was rumored out there about his just arrogance factor. And I wish I could recall who had that out there that I read last night. But beyond that, I don't.
There was some talk about his toe, like he had a toe and needed some surgery that wasn't taken care of.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and the fact that I think he was kind of highly overrated as a player coming out of Kentucky.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing is, you just kind of accept who they're hyping up with a draft. And I remember that kind of bubbling up last year of just what a great pro prospect he was going to be and all that. And it's he was a good player, but I don't know. I never watched him was that's the second pick in the draft. I did when I watched Bryce Young, though, and I watched C.J. Stroud. I felt that way. Anthony Richardson just hadn't seen enough to just fully believe that he's the, what was he, the 4th overall pick? But that's an incomplete because I just haven't seen enough. But yeah, I just trusted the draft folks that they know what they're talking about, and that's why Will Levis was where he was. But clearly, the NFL, coaches and executives, there wasn't as much of a need for him, and not compared to the others in front of him.
No, so I just went on Twitter, which of course we know is the go-to of everything that's real.
All truth.
But a couple of national reporters saying that there is something to deal with the toe, and he missed a couple of games. Again, he says it's healed. That may be true. And it also, one said he's been the victim of the hype train. So take a little bit of that either way you want.
I didn't see, I saw afterwards on the internet of Kiper's meltdown because I watch on the NFL Network because they, like, their coverage is so smooth. That Rich Eisen is so good at it. And Joel Klatt's there, and I'm a big Joel Klatt fan.
See, I saw some Joel Klatt detractors when I was reading just some of the NFL Network, but it's to each their own. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's just they're calling they're all pretty much doing the same thing. But yeah, some are better than others. It's like you like red sauce or white sauce. I mean, it does. It's all kind of the same thing.
Butter with spaghetti.
Yeah, or butter with spaghetti, no sauce.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm also not a fan of Alfredo sauce.
You're getting hammered in the chat.
I know,
Alfredo's hit or miss. It depends on where you get it. And all. Yeah, exactly. But as far as Kiper, so I did have that on because that's just what I had on from the beginning, and I wasn't too worried about which channel I was on. And he was clear, like I said earlier, he was clearly flustered by the Will Levis thing in particular. And, then the McShay's giving him little jabs, and their little weird love-anger relationship was starting to cook. And, yeah, I might flip over tonight. I might go to NFL Network now that I think about it.
All right, the Commanders, yes, they do need a quarterback, whether or not.
Back to that question.
Back to that one, I don't know.
Yeah, we skipped over that. They need a quarterback, but clearly – a bunch of people who could have used a quarterback didn't want to take anybody outside of the top 5 last night. They need defensive help in the secondary as well. They love Mississippi State. They love the SEC, so that pick made a lot of sense. It wasn't a super sexy pick, but I mean, as far as a long, lean player, the type of athletes they've been recruiting and drafting, he makes a lot of sense. It's just not maybe what others envision.
One chat comment from CFB Plus. Smokey, I sent you a DM on Twitter, but Apple has to know teams might leave if the deal is as heavy streaming like you all have talked about. Why then would Apple put effort in that deal or even offer it? My question or response was because maybe Apple realizes the Pac-12, they are going to do everything they can to stick together. And yes, there's a chance that somebody leaves, and they just feel like Apple feels like they still have enough votes in that room to be able to offer them whatever it is. And perhaps there's a life raft somewhere between now and whenever the media deal is eventually signed, or at least put on paper.
Yeah, it's a great question, but it's not really up to them to save the conference. And I know you're like, but they want it. But, I mean, they'd like to have it, but I don't think it's like a must-have for them. I don't think Apple's like, we've got to have Pac-12 football this year. And I don't think it's necessarily like we have to have college football now. I mean, if everything's changing the way that it appears to be changing, they can wait a couple years or 5 years and be in a better position. So your question makes a lot of sense, but I just look at it from the standpoint of like they'd like to have it, but they don't have to have it. And I don't know that they have to have it to the point that or want to have it to the point that they're going to like, well, we need it so bad, we're going to hold the conference together with our offer, Like that's not their job to hold the conference together.
Right.
So why pay more just to, I mean, they got a lot of Pac-12 alums and stuff like that, but yeah, it's not on them to hold it together, but your question is valid. It makes a lot of sense.
All right. Arterio Morris, who was at Texas, has committed to play at Kansas. So there's an inside the Big 12 move. Morris actually, in one of the tournament games, probably as many minutes as I can remember him playing, he does have some trouble that he's dealing with because of some of the allegations against him. But he is now going to be a part of Kansas, and the Jayhawks get a pretty talented player.
Did we finish the top 5?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, we did? Okay.
That was the Commanders.
Okay, that was number 1 already.
Paul put our team, Garrett. Paul put our team at number 1.
I just want Hendon Hooker.
Craig?
Yeah, Hendon Hooker would be great. I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in Sam Howell. I mean, I just, maybe he's great over time. I don't know. But I think that with their topsy-turvy quarterback position since Kirk Cousins was there, I don't trust really anything about them. So I'd love to see at least some competition there. But, yeah, I think that pick made a lot of sense, but I'd love to see a quarterback before the weekend's over.
To close it out today, we're leaving a little bit early because of the pending weather. It doesn't seem to be quite as bad as Wednesday. Hopefully it's not. But to get a couple of your responses, Mansa Musa, it's great. I hope I said that right. I see you sometimes in the replays. It's great to have you with us today in the chat room to see what we do live. Mellencamp, I sent a message on the text line about Will Levis slipping and our thoughts. Well, we just gave those. Thank you very much. And I mentioned that we were leaving, and a lot of you say, hey, stay safe, be careful. And we will, and we're going to be smart about it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to – I mean, it's tornado season for those that don't live in the area. And so I don't think we're going to sit here and every time it gets dark outside worry too much about it. But we got slammed by some pretty good hail coming out of here the other day. So just being mindful of that, given we're right in the heart of Tornado Alley and tornado season. So.
And you and your butter and spaghetti noodles, Emery, wouldn't you think he's taking a beating on that? Paul taking a beating on
there
the
are two
spaghetti.
types of people in this world. There are people who are wrong, and there are me. So, I mean, again,
you sound like everybody I run across on Twitter, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, no.
No, I'm kidding.
I don't know if this is okay to use this. Paul, have you ever heard of the Italian broom?
I have not.
Go look it up. I'm not. I hope that's not here.
Well, good thing you just didn't check before you read it, just in case.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Right.
Butter and noodles. Don't forget the high chair. Okay. Thank you very much.
There we go. Thank you,
Garrett
retired
Ross.
stockbroker.
Thank you, buddy. Great stuff. Emery Winter will be putting together everything for Sports Tonight at 10:30, and Jim Williams will obviously be a major part of what we discussed there, and also with Grayson Grundhoefer, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Have an incredible weekend. We'll be back on Monday at 3 o'clock right here. Hit the like button. Ask those you know to subscribe. We love you. We appreciate you. I'm David Smoak. Good night.